Coming up, President Biden in Belfast, what his visit does and doesn't mean. Junior doctors at one hospital are called in to cover shifts during the strikes, then the BMA pulls them out. And back to his busking ways, Ed Sheeran joins a singer on the New York subway. I'm here to listen. The US president meets the Prime Minister in Belfast before paying tribute to the political leaders who brought peace to Northern Ireland. Joe Biden shared tea with Rishi Sunak rather than formal talks before giving his big speech at Ulster University.
Sustain the peace, unleash this incredible economic opportunity, which is just beginning. I promise you. You think I'm joking? It's just beginning.
Also this lunchtime, doctors strike day 2. Some go back to work because of patient safety concerns, but hours later, the BMA pulls them out. Have you quit your job over childcare costs? Why 1 in 4 parents say they have. And
dancing with my eyes closed.
Back to busking, why Ed Sheeran was singing on the New York subway.
This is the ITV Lunchtime News with Nina Hossain.
Good afternoon. President Biden has paid tribute to Northern Ireland's political leaders of the past as he made his big speech in Belfast. The US leader is in the city to mark the 25th anniversary of the Good Friday Agreement. He looked back and praised the leaders of 1998 who came together to sign the peace deal, and looked forward, welcoming the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's new Brexit deal, promising a brighter future for the people of Northern Ireland. He then called for the restoration of power sharing at Stormont. Our political correspondent Libby Vina on his visit so far.
A brief visit, but a symbolic one too. America helped broker the Good Friday Agreement, reason enough for Joe Biden to come here. But Rishi Sunak's breakthrough in negotiating a new Brexit deal over Northern Ireland's status was also key.
Walking out this way. Walking out this way.
Today, Joe Biden said he was here to listen. But in a speech later, he chose to highlight just how much had changed, how hard-won the peace had been.
The dividends of peace are all around us, and this very campus is situated in an intersection where conflict and bloodshed once held a terrible sway. The idea, as I said, to have a glass building here when I was here in '91 was highly unlikely. Where barbed wire once sliced up the city, today we find a cathedral of learning.
He said all Americans recognised the extraordinary achievement of the 1998 peace deal.
It's hard to communicate just how deeply invested in your success, the people across the United States are. And those of you who've been there know it. You know it. I'm not making this up. This is real. It's almost people can taste it.
On the deadlock at Stormont today, with the Assembly not sitting, he had this message.
It's a decision for you to make, not for me to make. But it seems to me they're related. An effective, devolved government that reflects the people of Northern Ireland and is accountable to them. A government that works to find ways through hard problems together.
He received a warm welcome here, but some unionist politicians have mixed feelings about this visit, underlying the continuing tensions that still exist 25 years after the agreement that brought peace to Northern Ireland. Libby Vina, ITV News.
Well, our correspondent Rachel Younger is at Ulster University and joins me now. What do you make of what you've just heard, Rachel?
Well, it was an interesting venue to be holding this speech in. Of course, when it was originally planned, it was an invite to Stormont, but there's been no government there for over a year, and empty corridors and tumbleweed, not the right optics, not the right background for a presidential visit. And so This choice of the university and the return in his speech again and again to the future generation and what it might be able to deliver and how it needs to continue fighting for democracy. I think there was an unspoken message there that the current generation of individual political leaders hasn't been getting it right. But this was a president who was really making the most finely balanced of speeches. Of course, he knows that there is a degree of distrust towards him from some unionists because, of course, of the enormous amount he makes of his Irish heritage and his Irish roots. So this was President Biden at his most humble. He spoke about how important it was to restore those functioning institutions. He spoke of why that would be vital for future prosperity here. But he said again and again, I'm speaking as your friend. I don't want to be presumptuous. He made it very clear that the decision on that wasn't for him. It was for the people of Northern Ireland and their politicians. But it's interesting, isn't it? There is a certain magic that comes with the presidential motorcade. The crowds here, nothing like the scale we saw for Clinton back in the 90s. But I spoke to one politics student who said that with all the wealth and all the power associated with that presidential visit, their hope is that that might just remind Northern Ireland of the potential for success here if they can get their act back together when it comes to politics here.
Yeah, and Rachel, the presidential visit might have been very different if Stormont was sitting.
Right. That's originally where the invite was extended to. That, you would have imagined, would have been the backdrop that President Biden would have wanted. But of course, timing often doesn't go your way, particularly in this part of the world. And the DUP have made it very clear they are working to their own timetable. I don't think there is any expectation of an immediate breakthrough today, but there was a carrot throughout that speech of economic investment. President Biden spoke of the scores of American companies that would like to be working here if, he said, things can start moving again.
Rachel Younger, thank you. Day two of the junior doctors' 96-hour walkout now, and the conciliation service ACAS says it is ready to help resolve the dispute between the British Medical Association and the government after the BMA held discussions with ACAS. But the dispute seems far from over on the ground. At one hospital this morning, doctors on the picket line told us their colleagues had gone back to work on the wards because of patient safety concerns. But in the last hour, the BMA says it's told those doctors to return to the picket line after the BMA claims it was misled over the number of consultants covering shifts at Western General Hospital in Weston-super-Mare. Our reporter Sangeeta Lal is there. What more can you tell us about this developing row, Sangeeta?
So doctors returned to work here last night because of what they believe to be staff shortages. So the British Medical Association, the BMA, agreed 7 junior doctors could return to work here, but they blamed the staff shortages over poor planning by local management here. But in the last hour, all of that has changed because they've said it's become apparent that both the BMA and NHS England have been misled over the staff shortages, pointing the finger again at that local management, saying they've either deliberately misled them or they've been unaware of how sufficient their staffing actually was. Now, we've gone to the hospital for them to comment on this. They haven't got back to us just yet. Earlier I spoke to some of the union members who were striking, and they told us actually that going back to work was a compromise they didn't want to make, but they were willing to make it to protect their patients. And the BMA today has said that they're trying to understand what has happened here with the miscommunication over the staffing levels, because they said that return to work was made out of good faith. So to see it in their eyes as being abused is incredibly disappointing.
Sangeeta Lal, thank you very much. Our health correspondent Martin Stew joins me now. He spent the morning at a hospital in Milton Keynes. Martin, a row between the BMA and a hospital in Weston-super-Mare. How is it where you are this lunchtime?
Well, if you're an inpatient, things are going pretty well, Nina. Yesterday was actually a much quieter day than usual. Today, numbers are slowly starting to pick up. But speaking to patients inside, they say the level of care has been great. The number of doctors in urgent care are very similar to what you'd normally expect. And actually, in many cases, they're more senior because consultants are having to step in. The real concern here for hospital bosses, though, as we go further forward, the longer this strike goes on, the more outpatient appointments are being cancelled. Nearly up to half of those have had to be cancelled. So the outpatient ward is much quieter. And the boss here says that is a big worry going ahead.
We're cancelling between 150 and 200 patient appointments every day of the strike. And we're also cancelling a number of planned operations. We know that we have got large numbers of patients waiting, not just in this hospital, but across the country.
So the clock is ticking. Everybody wants a resolution. The BMA say they've been in touch with ACAS, who often try and broker deals. ACAS say they're willing to act as the intermediary go-between. As for the government, well, last night they said the BMA's demands for 35% were unreasonable and they weren't willing to come to the table unless that request for a 35% pay rise to, as they say, restore pay from below inflation pay rises is lowered. So at the moment there is still no progress, but all sides are talking a good game at least.
Martin Stew for us. Thank you very much in Milton Keynes there. Next this lunchtime, how the soaring cost of childcare is forcing parents across the country to give up their job or drop out of education. A new study by the charity Their World compared costs across several countries, finding the UK lagging behind in terms of affordability of childcare. Almost 3/4 of parents find it hard to meet childcare costs. More than 60% are having to work more or spend less on food, with almost a quarter, 23%, quitting work or their studies. That compares to just 16% in Turkey, 17% in Brazil and 13% in Nigeria. Well, in response, the Department for Education said, we recognise the cost pressures that childcare has on parents, which is why we recently announced a transformative package of childcare support. This includes a new 30 free hours entitlement for eligible working parents. Julia Valero is moving to Germany so she and her partner can afford a nursery and carry on working.
Most expensive sort of in the area where we're thinking of moving is around €340. So compared to our over £2,000 a month here, then there's rent on top, and then you still haven't, you haven't put any food on the table.
Well, the Their World chair, Sarah Brown, joins me now. Sarah, Julia is not alone in taking what you could describe as drastic action. What did your study find?
Well, we were setting off to launch a campaign because we recognise a global problem for childcare and realise that about half the world's children are not able to access childcare. About half of them are missing out on any pre-primary education. So that's really been our goal as a charity. But we thought we would undertake a piece of research, look at a number of countries around the world and see what was happening. And what surprised us was the figures we were finding for the UK, where it seems much more challenging, and the dropout rate from the workforce, the challenges that, you can hear families are facing, really is representing not just a problem for those families and those parents who want to be able to work and have their children cared for, but also for their children missing out on those crucial early learning opportunities.
Is it going to change, though, and is it going to change anytime soon? We know the Chancellor made childcare a central part of his budget. Will this change the situation for the parents who are struggling right now, do you think?
Well, right now, of course not, because, more is needed a bit faster than is being delivered. I think everybody who cares about the childcare issues welcome the Chancellor's announcements in the budget. But the reality is that full 30 hours a week is not actually going to be delivered in full until September 2025. If you're looking after your newborn at the moment, that's quite a way off into the future. So we need to do a bit more now. And somewhere like Northern Ireland is all over the news. And this is what shows you the importance of having government. They don't have a childcare policy at all there.
If parents who want to work can't in this country, that doesn't just impact their family, it impacts the whole economy. So this isn't just a problem for people with children, is it?
Yeah, I think at their world, we would quite confidently say that this is one of the most cost-effective social investments you can make if you're thinking about the long-term health and well-being, education, and even future career opportunities of children. But also, if parents aren't able to manage their household finances and are leaving the workforce, then that's a problem. And I think that's exactly what the thoughts were when the budget was delivered last month. But
and briefly, if you're making a message and a plea to the government because of this study, what impact do you think it does have on children if they are currently enjoying their nursery setting, especially post-pandemic, and then they are pulled out of it because their parents can't afford it?
Well, we have quite a big, cost of living crisis here, big disparities in the way people are living and working. So for those children who are able to access good quality childcare, be able to go into nurseries, they're being stimulated, they're playing, they're learning, but also, a good nutritious meal there. There's, the kind of support around long-term healthcare is there. So all of those things, 90% of a child's brain is developed in those first 5 years. So this is the time when the brain can develop fastest and you can really unlock the potential. And I think all of us should want children to have that best start in life. So this isn't just about saying, we've got to, think of how we alleviate the benefit for parents. This is also a big social investment. And I think we're misunderstanding this when we think of it just as a private issue for parents. This is for the greater public good too.
Sarah Brown, thank you very much for your thoughts. Thank you. In the last half an hour, the Football Association has submitted its final dossier in its bid to host the Men's Euros in 2028. But it doesn't include Old Trafford. The UK and the Republic of Ireland's joint bid is up against Turkey for the championship. Ian Woods is here. So Manchester United's ground didn't make the list.
No, today was the deadline for the submission to go to UEFA. The final choice of venues have been announced from a short list of 14 down to 10. So 2 of the biggest stadiums in the country have been left out, and 2 which haven't been built yet are actually in. UEFA will make a final decision in September. Turkey are the only bidders, so a good chance of success. And that's despite the problems that we had in 2021 at Wembley when it hosted the closing stages of the Euros. When England got to the final against Italy, there were chaotic scenes as ticketless fans burst through turnstiles to try to get into the stadium. The government decided this time that a joint Euros bid in 2028 was more realistic and more cost-effective than an effort to stage the 2030 World Cup. Now, if successful, games will be shared around Britain and Ireland. Glasgow and Cardiff will host matches. Manchester City have beaten their neighbours Manchester United again. Their City of Manchester stadium is in. Old Trafford is out. It's bigger, but slightly outdated in parts. Spurs' new stadium has been chosen ahead of West Ham's former Olympic Stadium. Wembley will again host some of the key matches. Now, Everton's ground is also included. It's still under construction. And Casement Park in Belfast is in. It's currently a derelict Gaelic football site, but Northern Ireland's current ground at Windsor Park isn't big enough to host matches as it stands.
Ian Woods, thank you very much. Thank you. More than 900 people whose lives were ruined or changed by the Grenfell Tower fire have agreed a settlement of their civil claims 6 years after the tragedy. The group included bereaved family members, survivors and residents who lived nearby. 72 people died in the fire in 2017. The cladding firm Arconic confirmed it was among the companies involved in the High Court case and agreed to the settlement. Let's return to our top story, President Biden's visit to Belfast. While we've been on air, Joe Biden has made an historic address at Ulster University, where he praised past leaders for securing peace.
So it's up to us to keep this going, to keep building on the work that has been done every day for the last 25 years, to sustain the peace, unleash this incredible economic opportunity, which is just beginning. I promise you. You think I'm joking? It's just beginning.
Our correspondent Rachel Younger was watching that address. What is next on the president's agenda, Rachel?
Well, it's been the briefest of brief encounters here with Belfast. The President only on the ground for about 15 hours, and much of those he spent asleep. But we're just waiting for him, actually, to leave the university here. He'll be heading south across the border to the counties of Louth and Mayo over the next couple of days. That's where his ancestors, the Finnegans, were from. They left in 1840 to head to the United States. He'll be meeting over the next few days both the President and the Taoiseach, and delivering another keynote speech in Dublin. So he'll be spending a lot more time over the border in the Republic. That's possibly not surprising. Remember, there are 40 million Irish Americans, or Americans of Irish descent. He's made it clear, or let drop, that he intends now to stand probably for president again. So this trip works both ways, and certainly one that he seems to be enjoying thoroughly at the moment as we wait for him to depart Belfast.
Rachel Younger, thank you. And we'll have more special coverage of President Biden's visit to the island of Ireland over on our streaming platform, ITVX. Finally, this lunchtime, why Ed Sheeran went back to his busking ways on the New York subway. With a new album to promote and a sellout tour, the songwriter went underground to join one of the city's local legends. Sharon Thomas reports on Sheeran's surprise.
Dancing with my eyes closed.
He can absolutely belt out a tune. His friend's not bad either. Ed Sheeran, once a busker himself, gave subway station singer Mike Young quite a surprise when he turned up for an impromptu duet of one of the superstar's songs on a station platform in New York. Young's been performing covers of Sheeran's songs for years and is something of a legend himself. The 62-year-old went viral in 2016 with a video of him singing the Righteous Brothers' Unchained Melody. That led to an appearance on America's Got Talent and a studio album.
You know the first verse?
Ed's had a hand in kick-starting the career of another fan too. At the O2 in London last month, he invited Luke Gittings, who also covers his songs, onto the stage to perform with him.
Just dancing with my eyes closed.
Ed has dedicated Eyes Closed to his friend, the musical entrepreneur Jamal Edwards, who died last year.
I keep dancing with my eyes closed.
Back in New York, Mike Young's day was about to get even better.
Do you want to come to my show tonight?
With Ed gifting him a pair of tickets to his gig 2 blocks away from where he sings the songs of his musical hero. Sharon Thomas, ITV News.
Mary Nightingale will be with you for the ITV Evening News at 6:30. From me, bye-bye.
A cold start, with a snow shower spreading quickly across the east. Heinz Seriously Good Mayonnaise sponsors ITV National Weather.
Hello, good afternoon. Our second named storm of the season, Storm Noah, bringing a very wet and windy start to the day for many parts of the country. The focus this afternoon shifts to the southwest, where Cornwall will continue to see gale-force gusts, and the southwest of Wales along coastal areas, further gusty winds as we head through into this evening. For many parts of the country, showers continue this afternoon, some of that falling as sleet and hail, with a rumble or two of thunder in the mix, and those strong gusty winds across southern coasts and into the southwest of Wales and England continue for a time this evening. It is an improving picture through tonight, but not before we see further heavy pulses of showery rain and strong blustery winds for the west of England, Wales and Northern Ireland. Through the night, temperatures just about avoid a frost, 4 or 5 Celsius under clearing skies before dawn. And during the day tomorrow, winds will ease down. There'll be some good spells of sunshine, but quite a few April showers in the mix across the whole of the country, perhaps feeling less cold though than today. Bye-bye.
Heinz Seriously Good Mayonnaise sponsors ITV National Weather.